really brief. This isn't really that long. Okay. One of those little panel things in there. I thought to address it evenly. Okay, looking back on the On Location story, because it seems to be the theme this year, On Location story, discovered that there was an event where there were allegedly Pixar people down the street, and we went and crashed their Halloween party. Now, we did crash the neighbor's Halloween party, but at no point in the journal does it actually say it was Pixar people. We just crashed their Halloween party. But then I read on further on to the next year into '94. It's '93 and then '94, and apparently in '94 that was when the neighbors came out and said they were working on Pixar, on the Toy Story and Bug's Life. So that was later. So those two events were disconnected. They were separated by almost a year. And that was like, oh, they're working on their animators. They're working on, you crashed our Halloween party last year. Yeah, your friend drank all our beer out of that cooler. But we're working on a Pixar movie. We want you to go and see it. So they're like, oh yeah, which one is it? Oh, The Bug's Life. The Bug's Life. Oh, see that. So we don't saw The Bug's Life. They worked on it. So that's the Pixar story. Yeah, so the other Pixar story is that in the same time period, about a year later, there was a job club / job fair thing class. They filmed a couple of movies over there at San Jose State. They filmed Mad City. They filmed it was the one with Tom Cruise running around. They filmed Outbreak and made it look like a port city. They filmed Flubber. All of these in the '90s while we were there. So they were filming movies down there. Also, Three Ninjas, the first one and second one. It turns out that in the case of Three Ninjas, before we go back to the other one, it was the second one. It was a crappy sequel. That one so if you go back to Three Ninjas Kick Back, that's the one Grandmaster's Reserve is in. It's the sequel. It was in the journal. It said no, it wasn't the first one. It was like '94, so it had to be the sequel. Yeah, but he remembered. Ernie Reyes remembered it. He's like, yeah, I remember that. We used to retreat in it because there wasn't enough action, so we used this other retreat. It would have been the sequel, which didn't make any money either. So, but yeah, he remembered Three Ninjas Kick Back. That's what it was called. But yeah, I was not credited. So, and the uniform was put away and found in a trunk years later. And curiously, the belt that I got last year to match the uniform does fit the uniform, but not me. So I get another size up. Ooh, but if I tie it just once, it's fine. Okay, the other Pixar story. Okay, there was a class because there were other movies being filmed. Pixar people showed up because they're up the hill. Actually, Lucasfilm too is also up the north. So you have East Bay. So you have Lucasfilm too, and there was somebody from the church that did work for Lucasfilm in the 2000s, and got to get free passes to Disneyland all the time. Similar to the Yeagers and the Cantrells, who also had passes to Disneyland and Disney World, because they knew people at the Disneyland thing at some point, or knew of people that were over there and had just had the ability to go there. I'm not sure if they always knew of them, if they still knew of them when they went, but I'm not sure. But I do know that it's in the journal, in one of them. Does mention that one of the cousins of the Cantrells was a Disney character at Disneyland, and that's how they got to the '89 one. She used to be a Disney character, so they had a past. So, which is interesting. One of the cousins. Yeah, of the Minyard side of the Cantrells. So she got to be she was one of the people characters. I don't know how they gave them a free pass though. It probably didn't, but it was probably just that they got one. So, but then we come to the Jaegers used to know of someone that was famous, but it was a long time ago. at Disney. But it's apparently still a connection because, yeah, he's been to the 33 Club somehow. It's that Marvel connection that people keep using. So we're part of Marvel. Why don't we just Disney, Marvel? And, yeah, if we were actually that, wouldn't we have more views? But yeah, so the Pixar story, rambling over. Lasseter, who later turned out to be a little off, let's say. We're not going to go into that because that would be like literally going, he's a little off. But let's just say, Pete Docter and the other guys, Toy Story guys, we're talking about the future of the thing, Toy Story 2 eventually and all that. It was on its way. And they were all, and somebody in the audience had asked about Andy's dad. And I know that some of the other stuff has been debunked. Since then, there's been a lot of Pixar theories and film theories and other YouTube channels that have done Andy's dad thing. Andy's dad thing. Where did he go? Why wasn't he there? Well, it's Mark's Cards has said. Yeah, Mark's Cards had said. Well, the reason they don't have the other parent is it's a Disney trope. You have to have one parent missing in most Disney movies, so that it's or dead, so that it's a Disney trope. But it's more than that, because Lasseter and the other guy, years ago, said to us in the class, in the panel, they were kind of kidding, but only half kidding. And it was the 90s, so snark was a thing, a big thing. They said, well, Eddie's dad died of AIDS. And the class was like, what? And he was like, well, think about it. Died of AIDS, HIV. They wouldn't talk about that in the 50s and 60s. 70s and 80s, it was a bad thing. So he died just before the events of the story. And he's dead of HIV, of AIDS. And if you think about the song and the characters, Woody and Buzz, representing sort of Andy's psyche. Pete Docter was going on about the psyche. Andy's psyche, right? His psyche interpreted this because how old was he? 10, 11? He sees the robots as real and the guys as real. And they go on an adventure. One of them, it's the old lost toy that needs to be found and rescued thing. The classic idea. It's not even original. It's just a classic idea. Yeah, you have to have an adventure quest. You also have to have an adventure quest. It was very stuck with me. It's not in the journal directly. At least not yet. I haven't gotten to that. Well, maybe it's later on. I mean, maybe it's in there a little bit. But yeah, Eddie's dad. It's probably not in the on location. It's probably in the magazine part. We're not going to use that because, not canon. So it's not in the journal, but it's and it makes sense because if Andy's dad was representing Woody, the older cowboy guy, and he was going out to clubbing and stuff and whatever, like Midnight Cowboy type of stuff, not like later Brokeback Mountain, which was not one of a plethora of gay cowboy movies. There weren't hardly any gay cowboy movies. Brokeback Mountain was technically not, and much later, of course. That movie was not technically art house either. It was a studio film. It just looked kind of like one. Studio film. It was a spaghetti western studio film, but done as a drama. So doesn't count. 3 strikes against it. But Toy Story is a gay-coded parable movie. The whole thing. Toy Story is gay-coded. It totally is. The song, You've Got a Friend in Me, literally, come on. And that's fine. But it was 1997 or so, this thing broke, before the internet had really taken off. And they're saying that. They would deny it now, of course. They would be like, oh, no, we never had that talk with San Jose State about the HIV dad thing. We buried that story. We're going to talk about that. Oh, they literally buried the gay. Literally. Yes, they did. And his dad was gay. And he was, or possibly, gay or closeted. Closeted. I mean, he had the wife and kids. He's closeted. And he would have, and Andy, being a child, would misinterpret all their fun and adventures and whatnot. And, we're having wrestling in our room. Just ignore us. And it was like, Sure you are. He would know, of course, and he'd just be ignoring them while they're, you know. His friend spends an awful lot of time in that room with them, you know. This is funny because Tim Allen's totally conservative. But Tom Hanks would be all over that. He was in Bosom Buddies. He'd be, oh yeah, they totally were. But yes, they were half joking. And it totally makes sense. Like, okay, so Buzz was the younger man that he met at a club, well, clubbing, and he was younger, but not too younger, younger man, and they were having an affair, and they got a divorce, and they got a divorce. The parents got a divorce because they found out. The mother found out about it, and that's why she covered up everything, took down most of the pictures, left up a picture of the dad on the wall with the tooth. It is the dad, it's not the kid. That one guy was right about that. That is the dad. Well, that's a picture of him as a kid up on the wall. And there's the other stuff. There's also mention on the refrigerator in the one scene. It's the guy's name. That's not the old man from Up. That's later. They weren't even thinking of that. That's his name. There's other stuff. There's other stuff that they cut out. Gecko. Yeah, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense. And the whole idea that Andy internalized and projection thing into the toys aren't really alive. He's just, that'd be awesome. It'd be like Transtech. But the toys aren't alive. He internalized them leaving him as Woody getting lost or Buzz getting lost. Both of them getting lost and leaving him. Both of them having to go off and he internalized that as the toys. Playing the toys, so that's why they have to go rescue them in that story, and that's why part 4 doesn't really kind of make any sense, because because of that original concept years ago, which they probably rejected. Disney probably said, no, that's not official. No, we can't do that. It's 1997. We're not going to touch that. No, but yeah. You got a friend in me. Da 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 da. You got a friend in me. Road is long and it's like, okay, yeah, this is gay coded. And that's fine. But because if it came out today, it'd be like, oh, that's fine. It's 2021. But in 1997, no, HIV. That's totally what it was. It totally makes sense. They got a divorce. They both left. What they ended up dying. Or the father ended up dying, and Woody died. And so that makes the fourth one not make sense, because they let him be a lost toy again. The fourth one, that's spoilers. Fourth one, it should have ended with the third one. The third one was a perfect ending. Okay, they come together, but they get reassigned to a new family that has none of that connection. At the very end, it's like, okay, that makes sense. Andy grows out of the thing. I'll call that kind of sad, but but yeah, Sid's is a garbage movie. The third one makes sense. Just to be even more screwed up, maybe the we never see Sid's father. Sid was the other dude. Sid's dad was the other dude. It's his neighbor. They were shagging, and Sid's doesn't have a dad. So yeah, there you go. It's right there. HIV, they both caught it. The other guy didn't catch it as fast, so he was alive. So he was around, but not as much. Sid's dad. And Andy's dad. So that is the story. And also originally, the part 2, originally the Cowgirl Jessie scene where the leads Jessie, the fans were right. Originally, but they changed it. The reason that all of that lined up and they had all this stuff, it wasn't that it was an old box set from an old show that had gone off the air. That whole thing about the Woody's Roundup thing being an old show, that would have been his grandfather's show. Doesn't make sense. That didn't make sense. So that wasn't what was going on. It was a collector's item. It wasn't that. The collector guy was just crazy. No relation. but the girl who lost Cowgirl Jessie is the mom. That was originally the idea. They changed it. It was the mom. Andy's mom was actually Cowgirl Jessie, and there was like a scene. It was going to be, but it was taken out. Because they did lose most of part 2 on the disc drive back then. That was part 2, yeah, they lost most of it on the disc drive. I had to redo it. They cut that part out. So it's in there. On that original disc drive. So, yeah, that was later revealed. When they could have been full of shit. I don't know. But the AIDS thing is not. That is actually, yeah. So if that girl is Cowgirl Jessie, it'd be like, that's horrible. That's even sadder. It's like, yeah, they would do that. They're that mean. But it was HIV. It wasn't polio. That guy was wrong. It was AIDS. They were trying to be shocking. Yep. Anyway, so this is it for the evening. That was my Pixar story. Oh, God. It's dark. See you tomorrow.